In the last stream, we were working on setting up this system over here with our assembly controller, our assembly input and output units, and our assembly laser, along with the help from the Amazon tablet to allow us to now much more easily produce these unassembled PCBs. And we also set up our first automated engineer's workbench to hopefully, in the future, allow us to more easily make these electronic components automatically. And of course, combining those electronic components with our unassembled PCBs gets us the finished PCBs, which we are trying to automate. Now, what I want to work on in today's episode is, again, a little bit of a side tangent, because now that we have access to these integrated circuits here, which we got for the first time at the end of the last episode, you get 24 of these per packaged integrated circuit, and the integrated circuit here is just one finished PCB, and so we do have the ability to make an awful lot of these integrated circuits, because all we have to do is craft these together to make the finished PCB, place it into our laser chest, and then very quickly now, thanks to all of the speed upgrades that we made last time, we get 24 more of these integrated circuits in the form of the package here, which we just have to place onto this mechanical saw. Of course, we can also now look at getting a multi-servo press with an unpacking die as well, because again, now that we have access to these integrated circuits, we can make the machine frames from thermal expansion, and we can make all of the thermal expansion machines. But what we can also do, as you can see in this questline here, is we can get started with digital storage, specifically Applied Energistics 2, because up until now, we have been using this integrated dynamics terminal, and whilst it has worked, and whilst it has made our lives a bit easier, it's also a little bit buggy in the current version. I don't know if that's because I've got just too sprawling of a network or what, but occasionally it doesn't let me put items back in. I have to leave and go back in, and it's really kind of slowing us down in terms of crafting. On top of that, AE2 does have the benefit of having very robust auto-crafting capabilities, which I think are going to make it a lot easier for us to automate things like our pressure chamber. And then finally, on top of that, we also have the storage problem that is right now we are actually kind of full on our chests. We do have some space, but it's very limited. And if we pivot over into AE2, we can start getting some digital storage where we don't have to keep placing down more and more chests. We can instead just put all of our items into digital disk drives, which take up much less space. So, to get started with Applied Energistics 2, the first quest here wants us to make an inscriber. The inscriber itself doesn't seem too difficult. For that, we need 2 sticky pistons, which we can, of course, make. We do have the ability now to buy these oil clumps, and I will buy a full stack of them just so we can make sticky pistons more easily going forward. And then that is everything for the inscriber. The inscriber here is used to make these processes. There are 3 kinds: logic, calculation, and engineering. Each of these is made in the inscriber with an integrated circuit for the logic, which has been changed, but that's not too bad. The same for the calculation, and then the same, I'm assuming, for the engineering as well. So they all require integrated circuits. That's fine. We've seen how easy they are to make. They all require printed silicon. Silicon we can also make in the inscriber. We get that by smelting nether quartz or by smelting certus quartz dust. Again, that seems like it should be fine. And then finally, of course, each one requires its own printed circuit, so a logic circuit, an engineering circuit, or a calculation circuit. Those are, again, you guessed it, made in the inscriber with gold, I believe, certus quartz, and diamonds. Yes, that's correct. That's not changed. So, down here, this quest here says obtaining certus. There are 2 ways to obtain your first quartz. Either explore and look for a meteorite or buy certus seedlings from the shop. I'm fairly certain that because we're playing on the Skyblock version of the pack, that we do indeed have to buy this certus quartz seed from the shop. It is fairly expensive. It costs $250,000 to buy, and I think we kind of need to buy a few of them. The reason for that is that if we look here at the certus quartz seed, we can use this to make damaged budding certus quartz. This we could then put down and potentially use as an unlimited source of certus quartz, because it will grow certus quartz passively. But I've been told by the Twitch chat that the damaged version, along with the chipped version and the flawed version, will all eventually turn back into a certus quartz block over time. If we want to have one that lasts forever, we need to get ourselves a flawless budding certus quartz crystal. To do that, we start with the certus quartz seed, we combine that in water with some charged certus quartz. That's going to get us the damaged. Then we can do the same again with the damaged and some more charged certus quartz to get the chipped, and again to get the flawless. And then after that, we have only a 5% chance washing that flawed budding certus quartz to get a flawless one. But if we can get the flawless one, it's going to make it a lot easier for us to get more certus quartz going forward, and we are going to need certus quartz going forward, because if we look at this computing core right here, the computing core requires the automation of all 3 of these processes, and so we are going to need quite a lot of certus quartz to make that happen. So initially here, we can just crush these seeds to get some certus quartz. And so we could, if we wanted to, go ahead and drop one of these seeds into the top of our crushing wheels here. That should end up down here. It did indeed. We only got 2, which is somewhat unlucky. You can get up to 4. And then in terms of charging these here, there are a couple of options. The cheapest option is the charger from Applied Energistics 2. That is this guy right here. It's super cheap and easy to make, but it is a little bit slow and a little bit haphazard. The chat has told me that the Tesla coil is potentially a faster way of producing charged certus quartz, and it doesn't really seem too difficult to make either. We are going to have to use our mechanical wall to make that happen. Do we have any copper spools left? We have 1 copper spool left. That's not quite enough. The capacitors, as we saw before, are actually fairly straightforward to make. Brass casing we do have. Fantastic. I'll take 1 of those. The electron tubes we might also have. We do not. That is fine. We can, of course, very easily now make the polished rose quartz. Again, this is kind of the issue that we're trying to get away from, where the system is unable to put items away and therefore kind of stops us from doing any of our crafting, which is not ideal. Let's take some of that, though, and let's grab our sandpaper. Other than that, we need 2 brass sheets. We have them. Fantastic. 1, 2. And then we also need 1 andesite alloy and then the 3 copper spools. Can I make 3 copper spools? I can. Can I also grab an andesite alloy? I can. And so if we do a quick one of these, we should then be able to make our electron tube, and from there we should have everything that we need to make the Tesla coil. And once all the items are in, again, because this craft doesn't fill the wall, you do have to apply a redstone signal, but once the redstone signal has been applied, all of the items should move across, and we should get ourselves a Tesla coil. Nice. So this does require power to function. Of course, as with everything from Create, you can go ahead and ponder, and you'll see here that we want to put down a depot, and then above that we want to put the Tesla coil, like so. From there, we can go ahead and, of course, give it some energy via an energy exporter and just a variable card exporting energy. And now this has power, and so we should be able to drop our certus quartz onto the depot, and that's going to go ahead and charge the certus quartz. Nice. So the chat has pointed out that whilst we do eventually want to get this flawless crystal to be able to actually automate the production of certus quartz, initially, it might not be a terrible idea to try and use a pulverizer as our main method of duplicating the certus quartz. To do that, we need to get some copper gears. That should be easy enough. Let me make a couple of these and stick them in the system. And then I assume we already have everything else required to make this. We totally do. You'll love to see it. For now, I'm going to put this down over here next to this machine. Again, none of these are going to stay here. We will find new areas for them. Also, let me go ahead and quickly upgrade this energy interface to an energy exporter, like so, and we'll also grab 1 more variable card here to give power to this pulverizer. The idea here being that if we go ahead and pulverize 1 regular certus quartz, we get potentially up to 3 certus quartz dust back, and then if we drop 1 certus quartz dust in water with a charged certus quartz, we get 2 certus quartz crystals. And so we should be able to increase the amount of certus quartz we have just by running them through the pulverizer. On top of that, what we can also do is we can use a catalyst inside of the pulverizer to increase our chance of getting the outputs. You'll see right here there are multiple different optional catalysts, and if we go ahead and look at the catalysts tab, you'll see that the flint has a 1.1x primary modifier, so you do have a chance of getting a second certus quartz dust on the primary certus quartz dust, if that makes sense, and then you also have an increased chance of getting that secondary certus quartz dust as well. There's a 1.5x modifier there, and the flint is fairly easy to get. There are better modifiers, but all of them I think are a bit too expensive for us right now. Flint, though, should be fairly easy for us to get, and in fact, I think we probably have some in the system already. We do. Nice. And so what I am gonna do is I'm gonna whack that in here. The bottom slot is the catalyst slot. Over here, I'm gonna get us some more certus quartz using the crushing wheels. And did we really only get 1? That is unfortunate, but we can go ahead and throw that into our pulverizer. That's going to break it down into certus quartz dust. And then from there, we just need to get a little puddle of water down on the ground somewhere so that we can actually duplicate this. It's going to make sense, I guess, to put it over here near the pulverizer, just so we're not doing too much kind of back and forth movement. If we do this and this, we can put the water down here. If I do this and this, that should combine into certus quartz. It does. So now we can then pulverize these, and of course use our time in a bottle if we want to make that just a little bit faster. And you'll see this time we got 6, which is substantially more. And so now if we do this again, we're going to get 2 here. And of course, we then need to charge some of those to get even more. And so real quick, I'm going to kind of repeat this process for a little while until we have a decent amount of certus quartz. And then once we have a decent amount of certus quartz, we'll look at getting that budding certus quartz. In fact, actually, we got some to start with. Never mind, ignore me here. Let me quickly charge quite a bit of this then. Let me charge like these 10. The Tesla coil is thankfully much faster. And then over here, let's go ahead and drop all 10 of these in with these 3. And I guess we can also pulverize some more in here whilst we're at it as well. Let's do this, and let's do that. That should be all 10 taken care of. It is, you'll have to see it. And then from there, I guess we just have to kind of drop the damaged budding certus quartz in with a charged certus quartz like that. That should upgrade it to the next tier. It totally does. And the odds of us getting it on the first try here are very unlikely. Like, it seems unlikely that we're going to get that 5% chance. And so I think the sensible thing for us to do is almost certainly going to be to make multiple of these damaged budding certus quartz, upgrade all of them, and wash a bunch of them down on the lower level to give us the highest possible chance of getting that flawless budding certus quartz. Alright, so a fair bit of pulverizing and charging and water dropping later. We now have 10 of these flawed budding certus quartz. I did go ahead and buy 5 more seeds, so we have spent quite a bit of money here, but we've got 10 in total. Still not a particularly good chance of us getting a flawless one, but I'm going to go ahead and drop all 10 of these onto the depot, and we'll also go ahead and do a slight bit of acceleration here on the fan, and look at that. We did not get a single flawless budding certus quartz. That is unfortunate. In that case, let's do it again. Let's go ahead and buy another 10, taking us down to 12 million. And let's give this another try, shall we? Thankfully, it should be fairly straightforward. All we need to do is charge up a bunch of these crystals. I don't know if accelerating this works. It might. The trouble could just be that we don't have enough power actually here to accelerate that fast enough. And because the water recipe is the same every time here, it's just the new budding crystal with more certus quartz. All we have to do is take the charged certus quartz, drop a bunch of it in our water, which does keep freezing over because of the biome that we're in. But if we just do this, they all get made and they all get upgraded very quickly. And so we should almost instantaneously have 10 more of those flawed budding crystals, which we can go ahead and put right back onto this depot again, right about here. Again, give that a quick tap just to make it a tiny bit faster. And hopefully we got one. Look at that. Nice. We have one flawless budding crystal. And the idea here, of course, is that we can use this to get unlimited certus quartz going forward. We will automate that, but my plan to automate it involves some equipment from Applied Energistics 2 that we don't currently have. And so instead, what I'm going to do for the time being is put this away, and we will, of course, I can't put it away because the terminal didn't want to work, but now that the terminal is working, we can put it away, and we'll come back to that later on in the episode. We also do have a decent amount of certus quartz now, and so we can actually start looking at making some of these processes. To do that, we can use the inscriber. However, we're almost certainly going to want to upgrade to this advanced inscriber very, very quickly, because the basic inscriber here is pretty bad. So let me go ahead and put this down. We'll whack it down right about here for now. It does require power. I'm fairly certain that we should just be able to put an energy exporter onto this. Boom, and boom. That does work. You'll see it says stored at 1.6 KAE at the top there. And now we should be able to start making this. To do that, we do need to get the inscriber presses. If we type in press, there are 4 different inscriber presses, one for silicon, logic, engineering, and calculation. And it looks like these are all purchasable from the shop. They are. And we do need each one. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There's another $800,000 spent. We also need some gold, which we should have. Some diamonds, which we might have. Although I don't think we're going to need loads of these. We do. And then, of course, finally, in order to make the calculation, we just need the certus quartz, which we already have. So in here, if we drop in, let's say our engineering press with a diamond, you'll see that this very slowly makes one printed engineering circuit. The annoying thing about the inscriber here is you can't put like a stack of items in, you can only put one item in at a time, which makes it really awkward. You can make it faster here with acceleration cards, up to 3 of them, but even then, it's not going to be that fast, which is not ideal. Back over here, I am going to use the pulverizer again to get some more certus quartz dust, because I think it's going to be in our best interest to use the certus quartz dust to make silicon, at least for now. Potentially, we could pivot to a material stoneworks factory in the future once we unlock industrial foregoing, but for now, I think this makes more sense than nether quartz, because we actually don't have a whole lot of nether quartz. We've got 40, but we'd have to go back to the nether to get even more. So for now, let's do something like this to get some silicon, and then in here, the silicon press, exact same idea, silicon with the silicon press gets us printed silicon, and once we have 2 of those, we should then be able to craft up the 2 engineering processes, and that should be everything that we need to get the upgraded inscriber, because other than this, it's just iron and hoppers with the basic inscriber, so that should be fine. To make it, of course, we need to do the printed engineering circuit, the printed silicon, and 1 integrated circuit. Again, you can only put 1 of each item in each slot, and so we have to wait for this to finish before we can do the next one, and the time in a bottle also does not work. It doesn't do anything to make this faster, which is very unfortunate, but thankfully, we no longer have to deal with this inscriber. We can instead go ahead and upgrade it to an advanced inscriber. Nice. Let's drop that down. This guy gets power. In here, I'm fairly certain that we can put in a full stack. We totally can. And it might even be acceleratable. It's not. It's still not acceleratable, but you can put in a full stack and you can put in more acceleration cards to make it even faster. On top of that, up here, there is a quest to make the ME controller. Once we've made the ME controller here, the quest reward actually gives us logic, calculation, and engineering processes, along with a guide, some silicon, and a stack of integrated circuits to get started with. And so it's probably in our best interest to go ahead and make another engineering processor here, a circuit first and then a processor after the fact, and use that to craft up this AE2 controller. And then from there, we can kind of auto-complete this quest and move on to automating the production of certus quartz and stuff, and also getting, you know, an actual AE2 system up and running so we can use it for digital storage. To do that, we are going to need to get 4 skystone blocks and 4 fluix crystals. Now, the fluix crystals should not be too difficult. These can be made by dropping charged certus quartz, redstone, and nether quartz into water. There's our processor, fantastic. All of those things we have. Nether quartz we have, charged certus quartz we have on us, and then redstone we of course have in the system. So let's take all of those over to here. I think we just need 2 of each. So I think it's just 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. That should get us 4 of the fluix crystals. It totally does. And then as for the skystone here, for that, we need, I believe, to get regular skystone. The regular skystone we can just buy from the shop. Look at that. Fantastic. Over in here, let's go ahead and buy 4 of those. Let's quickly smelt 4 of those into 4 skystone blocks. And that should be everything for the ME controller. That was actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Boom and boom. Nice. Now, annoyingly, of course, you can't complete this quest until this quest is completed. And so we are actually going to have to go ahead and put 1 certus quartz in with 1 calculation press. And then we already have the printed logic. That's fine. And so at that point, we just need 2 more silicon via the silicon press. And then, of course, just like before, we can then go ahead and throw in U with ideally 2 of those. And I guess we'll throw in the other silicon as well. And as soon as our printed logic circuit becomes a printed logic processor, we can do the exact same thing with our printed calculation circuit, turn that into a calculation processor, and the quest is complete. We get more processors for this, as well as some coins, and we get even more processors up here with the guide, the silicon, and the integrated circuit. You love to see it. We've got so many of these processors now. Fantastic. So let me go ahead and quickly sell those nickel coins to get a tiny bit more money back. And before we go any further, I think we probably do just want to look at crafting a couple of key AE2 components. For example, a terminal is necessary, just in the same way that we have a terminal here for our integrated dynamics system, we want to get an ME crafting terminal. To do that, we need a calculation processor, a regular crafting table, which is easy enough when your system works, as well as an ME terminal. The ME terminal is made with a formation and annihilation core, along with a logic processor and an illuminated panel. The illuminated panel is quartz glass, glowstone, redstone, and iron. Quartz glass here is made with certus quartz dust and glass. We do not have any certus quartz dust, however, we do have a ton of certus quartz crystals. And so, real quick, if we do one of these, we should be able to get all of the certus quartz dust that we're going to need. And we're also a little light on power. We did set up our creative flight environmental upgrade last episode, but a couple of times now I've seen the flight kind of give out on me, and so we definitely do need to look at increasing our power production so that we don't, fall into the void if the power goes out, because that would not be ideal. Once we have that, we should be able to make the formation and annihilation core. This requires fluix dust for both of these, and so we are going to have to make some more of those fluix crystals and just run them through the pulverizer. If we do this, we can go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You don't have to make 2 at a time, you can make more, but I think for us, for now, if we go ahead and pulverize those fluix crystals, you can't pulverize these? Never mind, in this pack, you cannot pulverize them. We can either use the inscriber, the crushing wheels, or the crusher from mechanism. I don't believe we have what it takes to make any of the mechanism machines just yet, and so I think for now, we're going to go and drop them somewhat haphazardly into our crushing wheels here. And as soon as we have 4 fluix dust, we can head back over. You'll see that our power was out and we couldn't fly, but back over here, we should be able to make the formation cores and the annihilation cores to make the ME terminal. The illumination panel should be doable now that we have the quartz glass. That should be everything for the ME terminal, and then in turn, that should be everything for the crafting terminal. Nice. So that's going to go down kind of in place of our current terminal that we have here. Now, let me go ahead and we'll break that in a second. For now, let me get a chest because I want to kind of dump some of the items in my inventory out. Specifically, I want to get rid of these presses. So I'm going to put these in here for now so we can use them when we want to use the inscriber. If we want to access the items in our chest here, we would need a storage bus. That's this guy. The ME storage bus can be placed onto an inventory, much like the item interface here, and that gives the AE2 system access to that chest. Alternatively, we could also make an ME drive. That's this guy right here. Again, fairly straightforward, just 2 more engineering processes, and that's going to allow us to work with digital storage, which would allow us to use things like these ME disks. For the time being, I think, going to go ahead and make 3 ME storage buses, because currently, if I go ahead and take all of the items out of here and put them into digital drives, our whole system is going to stop because the integrated dynamics system wouldn't have access to the items. And so, for the time being, we're going to pivot it over, but I think slowly but surely we're going to end up replacing some of our integrated dynamics automation with AE2 automation to make life a little bit easier for us. But for now, let me go ahead and make 3 of these. For that, we need a bunch of pistons and a bunch of sticky pistons, ideally 3 of each. We also need to go ahead and get 3 of these ME interfaces. These are made with even more of these formation and annihilation cores. Actually, again, fairly straightforward to make. And the basic premise here is that we can go ahead and put these down, let's say right about there, and then using the fluix cable from AE2, which is AE2's primary cable, we can then connect this up to both our ME controller and our ME crafting terminal to allow us to access the items inside of here. Okay, so not too long later, I've made 3 more of these ME storage buses, and I've got some more fluix crystal here. So we should be able to craft some quartz fiber, which is just glass and certus quartz dust. We got a bunch of both of those. That's going to allow us to make a decent amount of this ME fluix glass cable. And from there, what we should be able to do is connect up here and here, like this. And for now, what we'll do is we'll kind of somewhat awkwardly run this over the top. But again, this is a temporary solution. Then we're going to kind of get rid of this here. So we don't need you anymore. Don't need you. And I guess we're going to move this for now as well, like that, and like that. We'll probably put the inscriber somewhere else as well. We also don't need this logic programmer to be here anymore. We have our portable logic programmer that we're using for almost everything. And the idea here is that we can throw down our ME crafting terminal like this, and that's going to give us access to what's in here as soon as we connect it up to power. So let's go ahead and for now put the ME controller right about here. That's probably not ideal positioning for the future, but in the future we'll probably also look at setting up a big multi-block AE2 controller. For now, we should be able to do this and this with a variable card in export energy. That should send power to the controller, and that should bring this online. And so now, in here, we can access our items. Over on the left, you can change the terminal style. I want mine to be slightly bigger. I think full height is probably as big as we're going to get. And as per usual, I would like mine sorted by number of items and descending, so we can see the item we have the most of at the top. The reason that I've made one extra of these ME storage buses is that I would like to also connect up the storage controller over here. If we do something like this, that's also going to give our system access to what's in all of the connected drawers. And also, it looks like we didn't lock this correctly. I don't know how this has happened. We've ended up with just nuggets in here. I need to look into that. But either way, up here, we should be able to connect the cable up for now by doing something like that. Perfect. And now we can see all of our items in all of our drawers. And the big important fact is that now we shouldn't have the issue where we can't actually craft because the system doesn't put the items away. I'm fairly certain the AE2 system should be better at managing that, at least hopefully. And so now that we have access to a very basic AE2 system, we can look at automating the production of the certus quartz crystals using our flawless budding crystal. I'm also going to turn off JEI search by default, which is under the little settings icon and then sync with JEI. I'm going to turn that off. I am going to turn on autofocus on open. That means that when you open it up, you can just start typing and it will type here up at the top. You don't have to click the search bar before you start typing. I think that's just a little bit easier. But essentially, we're going to use an annihilation plane to automatically break the certus quartz that is grown on the flawless budding quartz. We want to put this flawless budding certus quartz down somewhere. And that's a good question, is like, where do we want to put it? I might put it kind of right about here somewhere. Essentially, I am thinking that we might put this. Is that the middle? I think that's kind of the middle. There isn't really a middle here. I'll put it right about here. I do believe we can't break this. Like, you can break it, but if you break it, it will go back to being a damaged budding crystal. People have suggested that something like the cardboard box from Mechanism might be able to move this without breaking it, for those who are interested. But essentially, now this will slowly grow certus quartz. We then need to break that certus quartz. And the way that we're going to do that is, of course, using this annihilation plane. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and put something here, and then put the plane on top like that. I think that should work. We're going to go ahead and then break this, like so. And now, if we connect this to power, it will break what's underneath. Annoyingly, it works in a bit of an awkward way because, of course, the way that this works, if we accelerate this with the time in a bottle, we should hopefully see some crystals appear. It is quite slow by default, but it starts off at a low tier of crystal and it kind of slowly grows over time into a higher tier of crystal. We only want the annihilation plane to break the crystal when it's fully grown. For example, we don't want it to break when it looks like this, and if we just connect this to the system, it will break it when it looks like this because we have space in our inventories for certus quartz dust. If it breaks it before it's fully grown, you get certus quartz dust. If you break it when it's fully grown, you get certus quartz crystals. And so what we have to do here is somewhat awkwardly, we have to set the annihilation plane up on its own separated network, and we have to give it its own inventory that we're going to lock to certus quartz crystals. And by doing that, we kind of filter the annihilation plane to only break the crystal when it's fully grown. So what we're going to have to do here is grab our configuration tool, and downstairs, we're also going to need even more of the Fluix cable. And so real quick, actually, let me charge up some more certus quartz. Let me make some more Fluix crystals to make some more Fluix cable, and then I'll show you how we can connect all of this up so that it doesn't break the crystal too early. All right, so now we have some more of the Fluix cable here. We can go ahead and run this across. Now, as I mentioned a second ago, if we were to just connect this up, so if I were just to put a cable here, that would connect to the main system, and this would begin breaking the crystals before they are fully grown. For example, do we have any certus quartz dust in the system? We do. Let me take all the certus quartz dust out of the system, and if I were to move this annihilation plane, which I don't know if the hammer's going to work here as a wrench, it totally does, you'll have to see it. If I were to put this here, let's say, because we have a crystal there, and then I were to connect this up like this, it's going to break it straight away, and I believe it's going to put a certus quartz dust into the system. It does. Again, that's not what we want. The way that we stop it from doing that, and again, I'm going to move this back up. The reason why will become apparent in a minute, but let me put this back down here. And the way that we stop it from doing that is by using some of the quartz fiber that we crafted earlier. So this quartz fiber here allows you to connect cables together just to transfer power. So if I do this, and then I go ahead and get rid of this and do this, this is now getting power from the controller, but because this is not a Fluix cable, data is not transferring between these two cables. Only power is transferring through the quartz fiber, and so now if this were to grow, it wouldn't break it at all because there's no inventory for it to send it to. What we need to do is we need to put down a storage drawer, let's say like this. We need to then lock that storage drawer using the configuration tool, make sure that only certus quartz can go in, like so, and then from there, we can go ahead and connect that up to the AE2 system, and at that point, that should work. So if I were to get another storage bus, which should be fairly straightforward, I think we have enough cores to make another ME interface. We do not. I must have used one of the annihilation cores for something else. That is fine. We do have what it takes to make yet another one. That gets us yet another ME interface, which of course gets us another one of these ME storage buses. And if we were to put this down right about here, what that should do is that should give this annihilation plane access to this drawer on its own kind of little network here. So basically everything after the quartz fiber is connected to its own little network, and so it should only break the certus quartz once it can put it in this drawer, which means it will wait until it's a fully grown crystal. And then I think what we should be able to do from there is grab our linking tool, and I think we should just be able to link this drawer to our storage drawer controller, and then we'll have access to all of the crystals that are made because we have access right here. Again, although there is a storage bus here, this storage bus is on its own separate network, so this won't connect to the main controller, hence why we had to connect it up across the network. Now, the next problem that we run into here is that the budding crystal is, as you can see, very, 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 very slow. Thankfully, we can fix that by using these crystal growth accelerators. These are somewhat easy to make. They do require blocks of Fluix, which is kind of the only thing that makes them a little bit expensive. They also require yet more quartz glass, which thankfully is not expensive at all. But if we go ahead and make one of these can be placed down around the flawless budding crystal, and they can then be used to accelerate the growth of that crystal. So essentially, all you need to do is place them down, and then to connect them to power, you have to get a cable down to the back like that. And so long as that's pointing in, and you see the sparks here, that should accelerate the growth of this budding crystal, and you can put down multiple of these crystal growth accelerators. In fact, you can put one on every single side of the budding crystal to give you the maximum growth speed. And so I think, given that we only have the one annihilation plane now, you'll see already this is going much faster, I think what we're probably going to do here is put down one of these crystal growth accelerators onto every side of the budding certus quartz to increase the speed of this top growth as much as we possibly can. We'll then connect them all with more Fluix cable, which is why I've put this so high up so we can connect it all on all sides. And at that point, we should be able to start seeing this in action. You'll see already here, it's not breaking that crystal because it currently can't get it into the drawer. Okay, so not too long later, we now have 5 of these crystal growth accelerators down, and 4 of them are online. This very front one isn't online yet because we don't have enough Fluix cable, and we are now out of nether quartz, but as you can see, this now waits until this is fully grown, breaks it, and we get the certus quartz. Again, if we now go look up here, we should see that certus quartz is available in the system. It is fantastic. So now we have basically fully automated certus quartz crystals. They're not super fast still. We can make it a little bit faster by adding this last crystal growth accelerator, but it's quite possible that at some point in the future, we might have to add like a second copy of this and have another flawless budding crystal, or even 2, 3, 4, 5 budding crystals, depending on how much certus quartz we need. But for now, the certus quartz is coming in automatically, and we don't have to buy it. What we are not getting automatically, though, is nether quartz. And the nether quartz has been a bit of a problem for us for a while. Thankfully, we can wash soul sand to get nether quartz. And we are, of course, making regular sand automatically using this system right here. And so, much in the same way that we're automating glass, I do think that it's probably going to be in our best interest here to grab a couple of storage drawers and automate the production of soul sand and then nether quartz. So essentially, all we need to do here is export the sand that we currently have round to this depot. That's going to bulk haunt that sand into soul sand. I will go ahead and lock that drawer. Then from there, we need to take that soul sand and export it to our new washing depot that should wash the soul sand, which has a chance then to produce nether quartz. And as per usual, if we do that automatically on a long enough timescale, we will start to slowly but surely back up on that nether quartz for use going forward. So do we have 2 more item exporters? We totally do. Fantastic. We are going to need some more variable cards as well, so we can configure those to the correct items, and that should kind of be it. Other than that, I think we just need some polar modules to pull the final product, but if we do this and this, we can then connect those up with this, and then inside of our programmer, we can get an item card for sand, which of course we can drag from JEI, and we'll put that in here, so that should export sand to that depot. Fantastic. And then over here, we just need another variable card, this time for soul sand, which again, we can just drag from JEI, and we can place that in right about here. Cool. And so once this is done, and again, let me give that a quick accelerate just to speed things up, because it will take a second to do a full stack, but we can then do that to give it access. And then over here, we just need to connect this up to our system. And of course, for that, we just need the linking tool. Let's do this and this. And so now it's going to export the soul sand. The soul sand is going to get washed. And again, if we get lucky, which we should do with 64 soul sand, we can then get ourselves a puller upgrade and pull directly into that drawer there. And we've automated the production of both soul sand and nether quartz. These are both going to go in here, and they both want to be set to facing north, which we can do. Nice. And so now that should be nether quartz fully automated. It's going to make it until we have 2048 SAM for the soul sand as well. That's completely fine. And now that we have more nether quartz, we can take that nether quartz and combine it with our charged certus quartz and our redstone again to get even more fluix crystals, which we can use to make even more fluix cables. And once we have a few more of these fluix cables, we can then connect up that last crystal growth accelerator, which is going to finalize our certus quartz setup. So down here, it's going to look a little bit awkward because of the fact that it has to kind of run out the front here, but that should bring that online. And now this should be kind of almost as fast as it can be with the setup that we currently have. And you'll see that we're backing up quite nicely on certus quartz, which is good. Now, finally, the last thing that I would like to do for this episode here is I would like to look at getting a wireless crafting terminal, because this is going to make our life a whole heck of a lot easier, because it's essentially this ME crafting terminal, but we can use it wherever we are in the base. Up until now, we've been adding just kind of more and more terminals to the setup to make it work, and you can do that with AE2 as well, but if we make just the one wireless crafting terminal, we can then just use that wherever we are in the base, and we don't really have to worry about having more terminals down. So to make the wireless crafting terminal, we first need to make a regular wireless terminal. This is made with a wireless receiver. We are also going to have to make an ME wireless access point, which also requires a wireless receiver. So for that, we need 2 of these fluix pearls. I did just go ahead and make even more fluix crystals and even more fluix dust just for this purpose. So we should now be able to make 2 more of these fluix pearls. Fantastic. And then as far as the wireless access point here, this is actually fairly straightforward. We do need some more quartz fiber. Again, we have all of the required items, and with that we can make 2 wireless receivers, boom and boom. We can use one of those to actually just make the wireless access point and then take that off our bookmarks. And then back to the wireless crafting terminal, we do need the receiver. We also need another ME terminal, which we can make with just 1 more of these formation cores, and then another terminal just like the one we made earlier. Thankfully, we still have some excess illuminated panels. And then finally, we need this dense energy cell, which is a little pricey in that it requires 8 regular energy cells, and each one requires 4 fluix dust and 4 certus quartz dust here. So we are going to need 32 fluix dust, which we do not have. However, we do have enough fluix crystals to get there. As for the certus quartz, we have enough certus quartz because it's still coming in. We're over 300 now, which you love to see. And so, yeah, we are also going to need quite a bit of certus quartz does to make the quartz glass as well, but none of that should be too difficult. I think we should be able to put this in here. We can place this over here, and that should be everything that we need to craft up 8 of the energy batteries to make the dense energy cell. So boom and boom, that gets us 8 quartz glass, which should be enough. It's only 1 quartz glass per energy cell. Can I make 8 of these? I totally can. Fantastic. Can I upgrade this to a dense one? I totally can. And then can we use that to craft a wireless crafting terminal? We almost totally can. Nice. So this does need charging. Again, I don't know. I think we might be able to use the Tesla coil over here to actually charge this. We totally can. It stores a lot of power, so it's going to take a little while to charge it there. I also don't know if the charging station from Pneumaticraft works for this. I'm going to assume it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't, unfortunately, which is a shame. But if we go ahead and whack this on here, we can go ahead and charge it. Now, to link it, I think all we have to do is connect it to this wireless access point. So let's put that down. For now, let's say right about here, like that. That should come online. Now, in order to connect the wireless terminal to the system, somewhat annoyingly, we do need to make an ME security terminal. This thing is a little pricey. It requires an ME chest, which requires yet another one of these ME terminals. Again, thankfully, not the hardest thing in the world to make, and that should be everything for the ME chest. And then we need to get a 16K ME storage component. This is made with 3 4Ks, which are each made with 3 1K, and so we need a total of 9 1Ks here to make 3 4Ks to make 1 16Ks. And so if we want to make 9 of these, it means we need 9 logic processors. Thankfully, again, we were given quite a lot of these at the start of the episode, and so it should be fairly easy here for us to make 1 16K component and then use that for the security terminal. The security terminal we can then go ahead and place down, let's say right about here for now, to connect it up, and then we just put our wireless terminal in. You'll see it now says linked, and now if we right click this, we have access to everything in our system. I have made a regular wireless terminal. I did want to make a wireless crafting terminal. Thankfully, we can upgrade it. Nice. And now this should still be linked. It is not. Let me go ahead and relink that like so. The difference being, of course, that this one has a crafting table inside of it, so we can actually craft, whereas the other non-crafting wireless terminal just allows you to access the items that are in there, so you can take them out, put them in, that kind of stuff. The wireless is out of range. That's our next issue, is the range on the wireless access point. Right now it's saying the wireless is out of range even when we're very close by, so that probably just means it's kind of out of power maybe. Let me drop that over there. Back over here though, if we want to increase the range beyond 16 meters, which is 16 blocks, we need to make some range boosters. The range boosters come in a few different forms. The default one is just the wireless booster, but then there are the infinity range boosters and the dimension boosters. The infinity range booster is just an infinite range, but it does require a nether star, and then the dimension card, I believe, allows you to access all of your stuff across different dimensions as well, which would be very useful, but again, requires even more nether stars and even more infinity range boosters. But now, we're going to have to stick to the regular wireless booster, and we're also going to have to get us some more power, because our power is not holding up well. I think we're fully out. Yes, we have 0 power in this system here, and we have more than once kind of stopped getting our flight as well, which is not ideal. And so, real quick, I do believe that we have everything it takes to make, I say everything it takes, of course, the system here is offline. Let me quickly disconnect this and this, because I think it's the extra items here that are increasing the power usage of the AE2 system. You can see in here how much power the system is using. I also might temporarily take the saturation module out of here as well, just to give us a little bit more power to play with until we can get some more power online. Speaking of which, I do believe that we have everything that we need to get a few more alternators, and so I'm going to go ahead and quickly craft a few of these and throw them down over here, because we already have this rotational speed controller, so I'll probably just get a chain drive and connect all of these up to this energy battery. And of course, chat is right, we can go ahead and just increase the priority here on the ME controller to make sure that we can do all of the crafting that needs to be done to make these alternators happen. Okay, so we've got all of these alternators down. Over here, we're going to go ahead and throw down a couple of chain drives like this. That is going to immediately overstress our system. So let's bring that down to where it's not overstressed, which is very slow. And then I've made some of this energy pipe here, fairly straightforward, redstone torches, iron, and a compressed mechanism. And with that, we should be able to extract the power like this from all of our alternators, piping it around into our energy battery. and things should be pretty much good to go. So now the issue is just increasing the amount of stress units that we have so that we can actually run this at a higher speed, because right now we can't run it that fast. Again though, thankfully, all we have to do to make that happen is use our Isaac frequency, which is right here. If we make this boiler here taller, we can add more steam engines to the top, and then we can run and connect that shaft up to power more alternators. Okay, so I've gone ahead and added 2 more of these steam engines. I've made the boiler 2 taller, and I've added 2 more blaze burners. To do that, I have gone ahead and moved the pipe down by 1, so it's now pulling out of the bottom of the tank and then connecting to these blaze burners. That way we can put the full 9 blaze burners down to get 9 steam engines running if we so wish. And I guess now it's time to go see if we can't make this power work for us. So down here, first of all, can we crank it all the way to 256? We cannot. That's still too much. We can go pretty high here, though. We can go up to around 212. I'm assuming 216 is probably the max. 214 is the max. Either way, that's still 1,200 redstone flux per tick that we're generating between all these alternators, and you'll see we are somewhat backing up on power here, but I actually think that's because, if you look at the top, we can only transfer 256 RF per tick out of the alternators because the pipes are not upgraded. If we go ahead and make a couple of pipe upgrades here, though, we can increase the transfer rate of those pipes, allowing them to easily move all of the power. I'm pretty sure the first tier of pipe upgrade here would have worked, but let's go ahead and just throw in these ones here. This is going to take it up from 256 FE per tick to 8,192, which is more than enough to move all of that out, which you'll have to see. And so now, hopefully, we are producing enough power here to keep things going. Let me quickly check on our controller. This is completely full on charge. You'll have to see it. Let me also check my Tesla coil. This isn't full on charge at all, but that's because it's pumping all of its power into here. That makes a lot of sense. This is where all of our power has been going, and thankfully it's got a decent amount of charge now to where we should be able to actually use this. Let's once again do this. Let's do this, and let's make sure that we are linked, and boom, we can use it. Cool. So now, if we are within 16 blocks of our access point, which is not very far, we can access this as if we were at the terminal. As I mentioned a second ago, if we want to make wireless boosters here, we just need fluix dust, certus quartz, iron, and then some ender pearl dust. The ender pearl dust we can make just by pulverizing ender pearls. And so I'll take all 3 of the ones that we have. We can always go and get more fairly easily. So let me do this and this. That should get us 3 ender pearl dust, and that should allow us to make 3 boosters. The only downside to the boosters here is that they do require more power to run. And so if we put all 6 of these in, we're going to go from using 8 AE per tick to 15 AE per tick. Not a massive jump, but it only takes us up to 30 meters, which again is only 30 blocks away, which is still not really far enough. It gets us a decent amount of range, but we can't use it kind of over on these far platforms, and so we are going to want to get even more ender pearls to make even more of these wireless boosters to even further increase the range of our wireless crafting. Finally, if we go to options, controls, keybinds, and type in wireless crafting, I think binding the wireless terminal to a hotkey should allow us, and mine's set to Z there, so I'm going to go ahead and unbind whatever else is set to Z just so we don't have any conflicts. Now if I press Z, it opens my terminal, and I believe we can put the terminal into one of our curio slots, like this, and now, if I'm out and about, I can just press Z on my keyboard, and it automatically opens the terminal, meaning that I don't have to actually have the item in my inventory, and we don't have to run back to this terminal either. We can just be doing whatever we're doing, press Z, do a craft, grab an item, whatever it is we want, it should just work, and it should make our lives so much easier, and it should make us just a bit faster going forward because we don't have to do quite as much back and forthing to get any items that we want, which is good. And so next time we will come back and we will look at using AE2, I think, to automate the crafting of things like the pressure chamber here, using the pattern providers and the pattern encoding that we can do with AE2 to hopefully make this better than it currently is, because it currently does have a couple of flaws, as you can see by the fact that we have random haphazardous items placed in there. And we will also potentially look next episode at maybe getting a mob farm going as well. It's not strictly necessary here in terms of progression to the single board computer. It's also not strictly necessary on the automation of the printed circuit boards either, but If we can get one up and running, it means we don't have to keep going back to the Nether over and over and over again anytime we need ender pearls. It also means we're going to get things like gunpowder and rotten flesh passively as well, which will just make our lives a little bit easier going forward whenever we want to craft any of the items that require those mob drops. And so I do think that is going to be a worthwhile investment. But as always, that is a problem for future Isaac. For now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of Forever Factory there.